Good morning. You are listening to National Real Estate Auction Radio Show. I am your host, Doug Dennison, and we are broadcasting from beautiful St. Augustine, Florida, the nation's oldest city, at WFOY 1240 AM studios. The show will be archived on RAL Auctions, as they are the host of this program. Additionally, the show will be posted on YouTube.com. We are going to be talking about real estate auctions, past auctions, upcoming auctions. We have lots of topics today. And to help us out, we are going to really start something different. We're going to have an open forum today. That means people can call in. We're going to be talking about the Civilian Property Realignment Act. I've got actually a copy from an article that's calling it the auction bill. GOP senator to propose auction of federal properties to pay down deficit. And so we can talk about that. It's a great idea, but let's go to our first caller. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hey, Doug. Ed Delgado at 5 Star.
Ed, how are you doing, sir?
Well, thanks. How are you today?
Well, thank you. First of all, tell us, before we get into this topic, and again, this is a new segment. Usually I don't do this as an open forum, but you are from the 5 Star Conference and 5 Star Institute. What is that? And I know that you have got a great conference coming up, but tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah, well, the 5 Star Institute really amounts to be a trade association for mortgage banking and real estate professionals. We host national conferences. Our biggest conference takes place this year between September 11th and September 13th in Dallas at the Hilton Anatole. Keynote speakers will be former President George W. Bush and Mayor Rudy Giuliani. We're expecting about 4,000 to 5,000 people in attendance.
Okay, Ed, I'm not getting your call in real loud and clear.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Let me switch off for a second.
Okay.
Doug, is that better?
That's much better. Thank you.
Okay, super. Sorry about that. So
no problem.
Our big national conference will take place on September 11th through September 14th in Dallas at the Hilton Anatole. President George W. Bush, Mayor Rudy Giuliani will be in attendance as keynote speakers. And the entire event really is quite spectacular. There's an enormous amount of curriculum, presentations, panel discussions from the top executives and industry experts. So we're looking forward to those dates in September.
Well, that's excellent. I've been there several times. It is the place to go for real estate people and lenders and government officials, and I've actually had the opportunity to speak there at a seminar. So I'm about auctions. So I'm thrilled that it's going so well. I was there when there was like 4,000 people. So, with the president and Mayor Giuliani, you must be going crazy.
Yeah, I mean, the main hotel is sold out, unfortunately, but there's still Dallas is a big place. So
yes.
Plenty of nearby hotels, but the Hilton Anatole sold out about a week ago. That's housing all the attendees for the conference. But you're right, it is quite the franchise, 5 Star conference and expo with over 150 exhibitors in attendance in the hall. It is, again, the single largest gathering of mortgage executives in the country. So if you're still interested to register, please go to our website at www.the5star.com, and I do believe we still are accepting registrations for the conference that again takes place on September 11th through the 13th.
Well, it is a big place. That hotel is just huge and a perfect place for your conference. Let's talk about our topic. I'm going to read you, if you bear with me for just a second. The topic is basically this auction bill, and I'm going to read you an article that I found on the website a week ago or 2 weeks ago. It says GOP senator to propose auction of federal properties to pay down deficit. And it's by Josiah Ryan. It was on the internet on 8/4/11. It says Senator Scott Brown, a Republican from Massachusetts, plans to propose legislation that would order the auction of up to 45,000 unused or underused government properties in order to raise funds to reduce the nation's deficit, the Boston Herald reported on Thursday. Brown said he expects his legislation could raise up to $15 billion toward deficit reduction while streamlining the management of federal assets. There is a tremendous amount of surplus property, Brown said. We could save over $15 billion. That's real money. We'd be converting underutilized real estate into reductions in the federal deficit. The legislation would appoint a 7-person commission to select properties and organize the sale. According to a description of the legislation released by Brown's office, the chairman of that commission would require confirmation by the Senate. The bill will be co-sponsored by Representative Jeff Denham, who's a Republican from California, and could be included as one of the yet-to-be-determined deficit-cutting measures in next year's budget. And pretty exciting, and I did give you a heads up on this and was hoping that you would call. What's your initial thoughts? And again, you are a leader in the real estate industry. Good idea, bad idea? What do you think?
It's an interesting concept. I understand the corollary to reducing the budget deficit.
Mm-hmm.
But I was curious in reading some of the initial language associated with the bill.
Yep.
You have to spend money to save money, and I always become a little bit cautious when a number like $15 billion is tossed out there. By trade, I'm an analyst.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to understand, how do you come up with that number? Just because you have a significant amount of surplus properties that are available for disposition doesn't mean you have a strategic plan in effect to attract buyers, the qualifications for those buyers, the introduction and use of those properties as they're disposed of. So that gives me pause. Probably more importantly is right up front, and correct me if I'm off here,
Mm-hmm.
I believe the bill calls for a one-time expenditure of $88 million to set up the panel.
Mm-hmm.
So I get it. I mean, everybody wants to reduce the budget deficit. $15 billion is a meaningful number.
It sure is, yep.
I'm not understanding how you intend to do that in a soft real estate market, and there's a contagion and corollary between residential real estate and commercial real estate, and now real estate owned by the government.
Mm-hmm.
It's soft. So who came up with the pricing model to say this has $15 billion in potential? I'm sure that proponents of the bill said, yeah, we've looked at this, and this is what we feel is available in terms of total assets.
Mm-hmm.
Rolling that through some form of consolidation makes sense, and the conversion of that property makes sense. But I haven't. Maybe it's just I haven't seen it, and it's there. I don't know how you do it.
I'm not sure either, and I'm sure that's a guess, an estimate, of course. And this correlates, and again, this bill is being proposed by 2 Republicans. However, by remarks by the president on the budget in Baltimore, Maryland, on February 14th of this year, one of his remarks was, as he's talking about getting the budget down and saving cost, quote, to take just one example, by getting rid of 14,000 office buildings, lots, and government-owned properties we no longer need, we can save taxpayers billions of dollars. So I think this has got bipartisan interest. In fact, the first bill, again, was done by the House, and that's the H.R. Bill 1734 IH, and that was put in there, I think, in May, and it's about this by Congressman Denham. and it's got 26 co-sponsors, which is amazing. So I think everybody wants to jump on the bandwagon of saving, not only saving money, but coming up with monies for the budget. And this should not only be, I believe, on a national basis, but on a state level and a county level. And we're not talking about houses. We're talking about office buildings, land. This is what I think they have. And you know better than anyone that it costs money to have a property. It costs money to keep up. If you don't keep it up, then it depreciates. And so not only are they getting rid of, hopefully, properties that they're not using in a deteriorating in price and value, affecting their neighbors, by the way, but they're going to raise money, and then as the final perfect thing is they'll go into the hands of an end user who will be paying taxes. So it's a win-win, I think. And again, I'm thrilled because they're talking about auctions. I'm in the auction business. I'm not an auctioneer. I'm an auction project manager, but have done many government auctions. Have been very successful for the government, for the taxpayers, for everybody. I guess last time around, when we did the RTC, Resolution Trust Corporation, brokers were concerned that, just like you indicated a little bit, that this is a flooded market with properties. Back then, it was a very big concern for brokers, and that you're going to damage the market, and this is not a good thing. And I don't believe it did that. And again, you're in Texas, and we did a lot of RTC work in Texas, and the brokers finally embraced it because they were getting commissions from bringing a buyer or helping the auction company represent on the seller side. And in many cases, sometimes the brokers actually bought. So I think auctions are a little bit different than they were back in the RTC days, back in 91. I think I did my first RTC auction. Do you get a feeling from then? Again, you deal with the brokers all the time. What do you think? Auctions are a better mix, better idea than it was 20 years ago?
Yeah, I do. You're not going to get disagreement with me on the value of auctions.
Okay.
Expedient solution that rapidly disposes of distressed asset, restores stabilization to surrounding markets and communities, both in the commercial, industrial, and residential side of the market. I do want a bit of a rewind, maybe a counterpoint to what you were saying.
Okay.
If I can, Doug.
Yeah.
By the way, thank you for giving me some time on your show this morning. I do appreciate it. I get the sense that it's political suicide for any member of the House or the Senate to go against any legislation that is labeled as cost-effective or reducing the deficit. No one's going to raise their hand and say, I don't want any part of that. Let's increase the deficit. So I think that the $15 billion on this particular bill is somewhat sensationalized. It's getting a lot of coverage. Where I take pause, not criticism, where I take pause is in how are you going to attract the buyers. And when we look at the disposition of property types, in some of the information that's been shared, very limited goes to family housing. I doubt very much that an abandoned federal warehouse or weapons range is going to do much to stabilize surrounding values of properties, whether it's commercial or residential. So, you're going to save $15 billion potentially over 3 years, but what are the incentives to attract the buyers and get them to the table to bid effectively to liquidate the property? Now, that's a great segue into your comment about the efficiencies of auctioneering of any type of distressed asset. I love it. I think it works great. You set a base price, you have rescission-based
pricing models built in. You know that you're going to get pennies on the dollar, but the upside is you're going to eliminate the cost of capital associated with property maintenance and upkeep, and that's precisely what the bill is looking to do. Let's get rid of properties that are costing taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars every year that serve no practical value. I get it, and I support it. Where I stumble in is on the how. How are you going to do this?
Okay.
What are the investors? Show me how you have a very well thought out strategic plan to attract investors to the table to say, look, we're going to give you some tax breaks. We're going to get you to bid effectively. We're going to have a form of due diligence that we set up. This is a structured transaction that has immediate impact to the deficit. Then I get excited. Then it makes sense. That I haven't seen. So it's a great idea. I don't know that it's a great plan, because I don't know what the plan is.
Well, I think they're in the beginning stages, and I want to shout out to Congressman Denham from the House, and he's in California, for putting this together, along with Scott Brown from the Senate. He's from the Boston, Massachusetts area. I think it's an idea that as time has come. You gave me a good segue, so I have to take advantage of it. Auctions equal fairness and transparency. One of the things that auctions do is that they allow everybody to bid on the same playing field. Same terms, same down payment, same closing time. If there was financing, which I don't know if there's going to be financing or not, that would be the same for everybody. These kind of things, I believe, are going to help the brokers, because they're going to get commissions. They're going to work with the auctioneers, and also what brokers would do when we work with them. And let's just come up with an idea. All right, there's an office building, in Topeka, Kansas, and it's going to be sold by the federal government. And so there's brokers there that are contacting their people in the area, and of course, across the country, around the world, actually. But if it's a nice big office building, those brokers are going to be talking to their clients. And obviously, if they win the bid, they're going to get paid a commission, a cooperating broker commission. But sometimes, there's only one winner. So all those brokers that were talking to other buyers, they either lost out, or they said, that's a 10-story office building. I'm only looking for a 5-story. It gives them an opportunity to say, no problem, let me get to work, and I'll find you something. And that's why I know it has been good for brokers and will be good for brokers. I think it's also good for the investors, the people who buy them, because then they're going to fix up the property, and they're going to, pay for goods and services. And so that's a no-brainer. It's good for the government. They no longer pay for upkeep on properties and possible vandalism, depreciation. It's good for the neighbors and nearby properties. You know that you're as good as your weakest link in the area. And even though you've got a great building, if 2 buildings down, you've got a property that has not been kept up, has not been used, that hurts your value. It's good for taxpayers, because those properties would end up having end users, owners, who would pay taxes. And good for government, because the sales of the sale and the monies would help with the budget. And the last thing, I think it's good for the government and taxpayers, because additional monies mean less chance of raising taxes. And that's good for, the lawmakers who hate to do it, and good for people like you and I who hate to pay it. So those are my kind of rebuttals, the reason why I think it will be a good idea. Has a long way to go, but and again, I am so thrilled that you called me and came on the show, because you are a VIP in the area. I appreciate your counterpoints, and we're going to have other people on the show. Tell us your website one more time, Ed, because your 5-star conference is the best in the country, I believe, for this type of venue.
Yep. No, I again appreciate your comments, and as always, to your listeners, respect your opinions. They're always very well laid out, and it's always good to have a healthy debate. So I enjoyed being on your show this morning. The website again is www.the5star.com. That is for the 5-Star Institute. Our National Mortgage Default Servicing Conference and Expo will take place in Dallas at the Hilton Anatole on September 11th through the 13th, with our featured keynote being former President George W. Bush and Mayor Rudy Giuliani, formerly the mayor of New York. And Doug, I hope to see you at the conference and soon in Dallas.
Very good. Ed, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Have a great day, sir.
Bye-bye now. You're on the air. Good morning. Good morning. You're on the air.
Hi, Doug.
Hey, yes.
Bob Shapiro.
Who is it, please?
Bob Shapiro.
Hey, Bob. Thank you so much for calling in. And this is an open forum. It's kind of crazy because I see your call. You've been on there for a while, so thank you for holding on. We're talking about this auction bill. Tell me your thoughts.
Well, I mean, I think I have a number of thoughts, Doug, and I'm sitting here with my partner Murph, and he may have some additional thoughts, and I'll put him on the phone as well.
Okay.
I think it's good in a number of fronts. I mean, I think that clearly anything that the U.S. government does to show that it's taking a proactive role to get rid of, extraordinary assets that they don't need, shows that we're addressing the deficit problem. They can raise billions of dollars and use the auction methodology to do that. I think that that's a smart thing. Clearly, with the amount of money that's out there in the system today, and the amount of what I would call dry powder that's out there with the equity funds, they may find some very willing, strong bidders in these things. I think it would get a lot of attention, and I really think that they would maximize their dollar return by doing this approach.
That's a good point, and I failed to bring it up that there is a lot of money on the sidelines. I've been waiting for opportunities, and that's wonderful. Where are you from, Bob? What do you do?
I'm from Needham, Massachusetts, and we're developers, and also we develop hotels, multifamily, occasional office, occasional master plan residential subdivisions. So we are active here in the Northeast. We also have a consulting arm in the hospitality and resort industry where we're working with a number of hedge funds and ski resorts and large resort plays across the United States and Canada. So that's pretty much what we do.
Well, that's wonderful. I want to take you back a little bit about the RTC, and I'm going to ask you a big favor, if you would. We have to go to break in like a minute. Would it be? It takes 2 minutes, I think, for new ads. Would you hold on so that we could talk more? Because this is similar to the RTC in that there's a bill being placed, and it's very exciting to me. Would you be willing to hold on for another 2 minutes so we can talk more?
Sure.
Good. All right, folks, we're going to go to break in just a second, but what we're talking about is, I call it the auction bill, and it's Senator Brown's bill, S-1503. It's called the Civilian Property Realignment Act. Senator Scott Brown from Massachusetts, and also Congressman Denham from California, in the House are putting this together. We are going to go on a short break. We've got Robert Shapiro from Needham, Massachusetts on the line. He's going to hold on. We'll talk more. And again, thank you for listening to the show. and we'll be back in a minute.
It's time to visit the St. John's Flea Market. Great deals every weekend. Every weekend there's more, too. Great bargains and great food and those great deals at the St. John's Flea Market. Get off I-95 at State Road 207. That's I-95 at 207. And if you want to be a vendor, hey, booth rentals start at only $10 a day. Churches and charities, you can get a free booth 2 days a month. And for everybody else, there's always great deals at the St. John's Flea Market. Call them up, 824-4210, or go to stjohnsfleamarket.com.
I'm Chris Phillips. Here's the St. Johns County forecast for this Friday. Showers and thunderstorms likely today. A high of 89 degrees. Windy conditions. North winds 25 to 30 miles an hour. Scattered showers tonight. A low of 77. High surf advisory, wind advisory, and a dangerous risk of rip currents at area beaches. This weather forecast is brought to you by Dennis Shepard Electric. Is your generator ready? Have you had it serviced lately? Call Dennis Shepard Electric at 808-1333.
Teddy, the Wonder Dog, where are you? Come here, boy. Come here. Talk to me. Talk to me.
Oh, my mommy finally got it right. She took me to the St. Augustine Animal Clinic. I love her.
There you go. Do you need to hear from anyone else? Look, Dr. Jack Schmidt and his team cleared up Teddy's lifelong allergy problems in no time. So give him a call, 824-5454, or go to staugustinevetclinic.com and tell him Teddy, the Wonder Dog, sent you. Right, Teddy?
Oh, yeah, I did. I love.
Hey guys, do you like real pizza? I'm not talking about pizza made from pre-sliced or pre-packaged ingredients. I'm talking about the real deal, the way it's supposed to be done. Hi, I'm Brooklyn Tringali, and my family owns Carmelo's Pizzeria located on the corner of King and Malaga Streets in downtown St. Augustine. At Carmelo's, we offer only the best pizza you will find, and we won't do it any other way. We cook our pies in a brick oven, not a conveyor oven like the other guys, to give you that true authentic taste that you've been looking for. Everyone in my family, including myself, are directly involved in our pizzeria. We are truly family owned and operated. Just ask your friends about Carmelo's and you'll see why we are the fastest growing pizzeria in the area. Whether you are dining in or picking up your pie, you will not be disappointed. Come in and get hooked on our lunch special, 2 jumbo slices of cheese pizza and a medium drink for only $4.95. We also deliver to a limited area. Give us a call today at 904-494-6658 or visit us on the web at carmelosmarketplace.com.
Looking for something you need or want? Too much stuff in your life? Call into the Swap Shop Wednesdays on WFOY from 10 to 11 a.m. I'll be here to help. I'm Sheldon, and I'll take your calls at 797-1919. Private sellers only, please. And weapons, real estate, and non-collectible motor vehicles are the only things off limits. Having a yard sale this weekend? Maybe a church or fraternal order event. I'll even take your lost and found item calls at the Swap Shop Wednesdays from 10 to 11 a.m. on News Talk 1240 WFOY. And don't forget the number, 797-1919.
Okay, we are back. You're listening to the National Real Estate Auction Radio Show. I'm your host, Doug Dennison. We're doing something different today. We're having a open forum. The telephone number here is 904-797-1919. That's 904-797-1919. We're talking about a bill that is being proposed by Senator Brown in Massachusetts and Congressman Representative Denham in California that is going to try to sell unused properties by the government to put it in the hands of the taxpayer and buyers that will pay taxes. They will sell off property, give it back into the budgets, and it's a win-win, I think, and we're listening to Robert Shapiro from Needham, Mass. Bob, are you still there?
I am.
Good. Thanks for holding on. I appreciate it. You are a developer, and you talked a little bit about the fact that there's been money on the sidelines for a while. Tell me why that is and what the deal is on about.
Well, I think that, based on the previous RTC exercise in the savings and loan meltdown days, that there was an awful lot of money that was raised to take advantage of distressed real estate transactions, both in terms of loans and in terms of actual real estate assets. There really has been not a lot of transaction volume that has taken place, with the exception of the occasional large building. I mean, the John Hancock building in Boston was a good example of a deal deal where Normandy Real Estate Partners bought the second mortgage position for pennies on the dollar, and as a result of that was able to, effectively buy the asset for $600 million and change because they owned $300 million of the second mortgage position. And then they were able to turn that around and sell the building for $1.2 billion in 18 months. There haven't been many of those kinds of deals. I think that, based on the RTC exercise, there are a lot of folks that felt that the assets that the RTC disposed of went to big players who had $500 million at a time that they could be buying, the GE Capitals of the world, Goldman Sachs of the world. And I think that this time, while there was anticipation of those kinds of pools being available, that it effectively hasn't happened, that the banks have instead, kicked these assets down the road, and as a result of the amount of money that's in the system and the liquidity that's available, which is very different than it was in the early 1990s,
right,
they've been able to get much better prices for these things by holding on than they have been by liquidating them. Now, there are other examples. Right now, I don't know if you've been following it, but the Allied Irish Bank portfolio, which was about $10 billion of U.S. assets, has just gone to bid loans in real estate. And, they were basically forced by the Eurozone and the European Central Bank to take these assets off their books because, Ireland's economy is in such difficult shape as a way of, liquidating these assets. I think that, Senator Brown is right on in this, that we have, while our financial situation is not yet as extreme as what you're seeing in Ireland and, some places in the Eurozone, that there is an argument to take these things off the books.
Yeah.
I think that it will be different than what it was the RTC, and that the FDIC is going to be less prone to taking over, institutions and their assets if they're able to recover on these things themselves. But certainly for the banks they have taken over and for the government-owned assets, good example of that, or they're talking about closing a third of the post office facilities. That liquidation of those assets makes perfect sense in this environment. That was a long-winded answer, wasn't it?
No, that was excellent. I will get back at you just because I was very involved in the RTC days, doing auctions, and one of the things, and it's hopefully a lesson for everybody, that you can do something and you can influence Washington and you can make a difference, is when they were doing the RTC bill, and I call it the RTC bill, but it was FREA, which was the federal. Help me here.
Federal Investment Something Recovery Act.
Yes, the financial. Here we go. Financial Institutions Reform, Recovery, and Enforcement Act of 1989. Anyway, they were doing that, and they were talking about selling a lot of properties, and this was when the savings and loans had crashed, and it was very exciting. I was in the auction business. I was pretty new to the auction business, actually. This was back in, again, 89, and the bill came out in its first draft, and it did not have anything to do with auctions. It was very exciting. I was in the auction business. I was pretty new to the auction business, actually. This was back in, again, 89, and the bill came out in its first draft, and it did not have anything to do with auctions. And I was working with another auction firm at the time and had just done some FDIC auctions, a large Lafayette, Louisiana auction of 445 properties that was very good, and I had an FDIC reference letter, and that was like the first FDIC big auction. And then this was like in 87, and then in 88 We had the first, I was the auction project manager for another first. It was the first FDIC commercial real estate auction in Tampa, Florida that went very well, and I got a reference letter from that. And so I'm thinking to myself, there needs to be auctions in this bill. And so, armed with a couple of reference letters from the FDIC, I basically faxed them to all the Senate and the House people that were on the committees. And then it was like Mr. Smith goes to Washington, went up there and pounded on doors, and everybody said that you couldn't do anything without a lobbyist, and you'll never be heard, and that was not correct. Was able to go there and found a friend and somebody that I never even heard about. It was Congressman Doug B. Ryder from Nebraska, who thought that was a great idea, actually amended the bill to include the words auction marketing, and that was the reason that all of the RTC auctions took place. And it was one of the highlights of my career, but it's something I'm thinking in the back of my mind. Man, I got to go up to Washington again and try to make sure everybody is going to do this, because it's a great thing. Part of the bill in the House, one of the purposes is to facilitate and expedite the sale or disposal of unneeded civilian properties. And you've been involved in auctions before. Tell us about the fairness and transparency that I indicated a little bit earlier. Tell us why that's good to everybody.
The auction process is a very effective means, particularly when you have this kind of cash sitting in the system. I think that the difference this time from the last time is that you had a much smaller pool of people with the capabilities to be able to perform, because there really wasn't that much cash in the system. That was a very big difference in the S&L days, and that was why the FDIC was forced to offer financing, which is something that that they always said in the beginning they didn't want to do because we're not a bank.
Right.
This time, the problem is not liquidity. It is an enormous amount of liquidity. The problem we've had is one of confidence. So I think that the auction process would clearly maximize the prices of these assets, depending on what they are, and how suitable they are for redevelopment. But I do think that that it would be very effective. I was also involved in the auction business during the S&L breakdown, and we did the national FDIC auction. We did the last one that they did, and we sold $350 million worth of property in a 3-day period, and averaged 96% of appraised value. And some of that stuff had been sitting on their books for years. So the methodology is transparent. It is effective. It's that much more effective when you have this kind of money in the system, and it would be a fast way to raise some dollars. While $30 or $40 billion is a drop in the bucket compared to a $14 trillion deficit, $75 trillion of unfunded liabilities, it at least is a step in the right direction. And I don't see any real downside to that process. I think that the good thing about the auction methodology is it would be a fast way to raise those funds.
Be a fast way to raise the funds. I think having everybody on the same playing surface and the fairness and transparency is key for any government deal. You always, when you sold properties and you didn't have an auction, you always had a question. You always had somebody come back and say, I would have paid more. And then when you have a property that's selling by somebody else, first of all, you get, let's say it's a $10 million property, you got somebody that will make a 5% down payment, and somebody else will do a 15% down payment. One wants financing, one doesn't want financing. One wants a 60-day closing, one wants a 30-day closing. Very hard to determine unless everybody is on the same playing field, and then the government can say, listen, it was advertised well, everybody knew about it, 36,487 people, were called in and emailed in, and in this case, back in this day, uploaded information. We did it right. The high bidder was Mr. Jones, and he's the one that got it. Sorry, sir, that you would have paid more.
Absolutely, and I think that that methodology, it's an even playing field, and as a result of that, is very effective. Of course, I wouldn't make the assumption that that all the property would go in that direction. I know that when the government sells things, that it's always a transparent process unless there's an inside deal through some political lobbyist who decides to basically pull out a pool for them on the side. I mean,
be good, Bob.
Once it makes it to auction, I'm sure that it's a fair process and will maximize value. The question is whether how much of that will actually go in that direction.
Well, let's go back one thing, and you said that you didn't think financing was needed. I want to, as they call it before, counterpoint. I'll give you a counterpoint. I know there's a lot of big money out there and REITs that need to, and funds that have started for this, and they need to buy. But I'd like to have the guy in the corner that sees this building. I'd like to have him have a shot too. Do you think that perhaps the government would offer some financing for that guy that needs it?
I think that financing won't come from the government. I think that the government has put enough money and liquidity into the major bank institutions who are looking for qualified borrowers.
Okay.
That there's enough leverage that the government has to basically get these people to step up to the table. There's plenty of money in the banks. I mean, one of the reasons that we don't have inflation, despite the amount of money that has been done with bond purchases and everything else, and money that's been put into the system, is that the banks haven't been putting the money out the door. Now, if you believe the banks, that's because they haven't had the demand for it.
Well, again, I'm in the auction business, and I get a lot of callers and people who are interested in buying properties, but some of those people say there isn't financing available. It's very difficult to find. Now, we're not talking about the RTC and homes. In this particular case, I'm looking at land, and I'm looking at office buildings and warehouses. That's what I think the government will be selling, things that haven't been used for years and in many cases have been worn down and depreciated and vandalized and all that kind of stuff.
A lot of that, Doug, will be determined by the strength of the individual acquirer, and there really is money out there that's in the system. Now, is there money out there to buy empty office buildings? Depending on what people are paying for them. But for any kind of commercial or cash flowing assets, those kinds of assets, with positive cash flows that are being bought at distressed prices, there's plenty of money in the system to buy those assets.
Okay.
I mean, people have to have the credit to support it.
Understandable.
But there is plenty of money in the system to purchase those kinds of assets. Now, if they really want to do the ultimate fairness approach and go into local community folks, et cetera, they may make some dollars available to people who would otherwise not qualify, and that wouldn't surprise me, as an adjunct. But I don't see the government financing this themselves. I see this as they're using their leverage, with the banks to make sure they step up, much like they did in the initial days of the FDIC and RTC residential auctions, where they basically forced the small banks to step up for the CRA credits because the people they were trying to sell these properties to were the people who were least likely to get financing. So it really depends on what it is that they own. I think that where it really becomes interesting and whether they would do it would be if they would really start to liquidate the holdings of residential properties that are being held by Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae, and there's a huge number of properties there, and that may be an effective way to move a lot of these things off their books, particularly with interest rates in the current environment.
Good point, and as always, I want to apologize to. I think we've had 4 or 5 callers come in and drop off, and this is the first open forum that I've had. Usually I schedule the callers and want to thank everybody for calling in. Our telephone number here is 904-797-1919. That's 904-797-1919. And my email address, if you want to give me a shout out and let me know you're thinking, it's Doug, D-O-U-G, at Rowell, R-O-W-E-L-L, auctions.com. And that's Doug at RowellAuctions.com. I'd love to hear your thoughts. You said you had your partner with you. Is he still there?
He is. I can get him on the phone.
No. If he's available, fine. But want to thank you so much for really calling in. Let me go through the whole thing. If your partner wants to talk for a few minutes, I'd love to have him. And let me go over what we're talking about today.
Okay, hold on 1 second.
You bet. We just listened to Robert Shapiro, who is from Needham, Mass. The auction bill, and the points that I want to discuss is, number one, auctions equals fairness and transparency. It's good for real estate brokers because they can get commissions by bringing a buyer. They can help the auctioneer represent the properties because most reputable auctioneers use brokers in the area as their eyes and ears. And also, those who do not buy, they have a great candidate somebody who wants to buy, and maybe they can find them another property. It's good for the buyers, the investors, who would then fix up the properties and utilize goods and services. It's good for the government. They no longer have to pay for the upkeep on properties and possible vandalism, depreciation. It's good for the neighbors and nearby properties. And again, you're as good as your weakest link. If you're in a neighborhood, whether it's residential or commercial, if one of the properties is run down, it affects your value. And so let's clean up the neighborhood. Let's get these properties sold. It's good for the taxpayers because those properties would end up having end users and owners who would pay taxes and fix up the property. It's good for government because the monies would help the budget, and they really need help on the budget. And finally, it's good for government and taxpayers because additional monies in the coffers, in the budget, means less chance of raising taxes. I know the lawmakers don't like to do that, and certainly guys like us, we don't like to pay additional taxes. So this is an extremely important bill. I want to thank Congressman Denham from California for putting it out on the House, and Senator Scott Brown from Boston, Massachusetts, for initiating it in the Senate. I think it's a great idea. Bob, are you still there?
No, Murph is now.
Hey, Murph, tell us who you are and
sure.
Tell us your background.
This is Murph Ewell, in partnership with Bob Shapiro, who spoke earlier, in a partnership with Waterford Development Corporation. I also am president of JMY Consulting Services, Inc., which provides real estate consulting services on the ski, hospitality, and resort side throughout Canada and the United States and parts of Europe.
Okay.
Doug, one of the things I think, too, all what you said is absolutely online and extremely accurate, and of course, based on your background and professional expertise, I would expect you'd have a good handle on it. But one other major kind of macro thing to think about that's critical in this bill is, as we travel around the country, throughout the United States, obviously, and even Canada and Europe, there's really a lack of confidence on the part of the consumer, relative to understanding of value assessments, particularly on real estate. And I think it's really critical for the economy and for confidence level to get these buildings back into the marketplace. Get them developed, occupied, create a level of confidence again with the consumer, with the customer, looking at all aspects of real estate to help spur the real estate market, the economy, and equally importantly, creating jobs. So I think even from a macro point of view, it's important to start to see private and public dollars working together again, understanding there is value and good value in real estate opportunities, and we'll start bringing those to light. So,
nice. Before I forget, what's your website if people want to hire you as real estate consultants or developers?
The best website is www.waterforddevelopment.com. Waterford with two D's, D for Waterford and D for development.com. And along with that, it breaks down all of our experiences, our present projects, our past projects, clients that we work for, and development initiatives that we've created throughout the United States, again, Canada and Europe. So.
Great. Hey, thank you, sir. Appreciate you calling in. Have a great weekend. Hey, good luck with Hurricane Irene. Hopefully that's not going to dampen your spirits up there.
That's for sure. Thanks,
right.
Doug, and
thanks
for all your expertise. Appreciate it.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
MarkNet Alliance is a national, membership-based network of 41 auction companies. Our companies are successful auction professionals with proven track records and thriving businesses. The MarkNet companies have a staff of over 540 employees who are working hard every day to meet the goals of their clients during our ever-changing economy. MarkNet companies are able to achieve these goals through cutting-edge technologies and ever-growing investor pools. To view the hundreds of auctions currently being conducted, or for more information, visit marknetalliance.com.
Hey, our sponsor is Rowell Auctions. It's a national real estate auction firm that started in 1936. They do online auctions, on-site auctions, and ballroom auctions. They have offices in Florida, New Jersey, California, Georgia, and have alliances with auctioneers and real estate brokers across the country. They do government auctions, bankruptcy auctions, and much more. They have a big auction schedule coming up, so check out their website at RowellAuctions.com. That's ROWELL auctions.com, or you can call them at 800-323-8388. Again, the mission statement of this show is to provide an educational experience for listeners in a promotional format for auctions across the country. I want to apologize to, I counted, I think, 8 different calls that we did not get to because of the depth and experience of the calls that we did have, and I apologize. I got a feeling that we'll be doing more of this open format, this open forum, and again, this whole show was about the bill that is being considered in Washington. I urge you to support it, to give input. It's by Senator Scott Brown, and he is from Massachusetts. It's Law S.1503. And again, Senator Scott Brown, thank you for taking the initiative to help us taxpayers, and that's a great thing. And also Congressman Denham, he was the one who initiated House Bill 1734 IH, HR 1734 IH. Again, both of them have gotten great support and I think they're doing a wonderful job. I hope to go up to Washington and shake both of their hands, give them more background about auctions and the federal government and what's happened, if I can provide any kind of help at all. Again, my email address is Doug, D-O-U-G, at rawauctions.com. I thank you for everyone's time. Hurricane Irene, hopefully it's not going to hurt many people, and we get through this real quick. Thank you so much. See you next week.